The SEC is particularly known for football and their dominance within that. Over the past decade, though, and even probably before that, if we're honest, they've increased their dominance in much of the other collegiate sports as well. With that comes formidable environments in which to compete, especially in the case of them hosting other teams outside of the SEC, if not just amongst themselves. With men's basketball and their ability to raise their game this season, it has become even more apparent that some of the most difficult places to play in college basketball, men's and women's, are at the particular SEC arenas. And we're going to talk about somebody's opinion that they shared it on social media, what they think about Auburn's place within that, and we're going to give our own opinions based off of that. Welcome back to Ever to Podcast. This is our mini podcast, video podcast series where we get to you from YouTube and the podcast platforms. However you reach us, we appreciate you joining us there. Make sure you're subscribed so you can get the updates of this show, but also the other content that we put out on YouTube and the podcast as well. Let's jump right into our conversation here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this particular topic. Who has the best arena for basketball is really the context of what we're keeping this at in the SEC. Now, that may seem pretty easy and pretty obvious when we talk about especially men's basketball. We'll get there. Hang on just a little bit of a second. But obviously, this being an Auburn-centric show and an Auburn-centric podcast or channel, we're going to obviously put things in the perspective of formerly Auburn Arena, currently Neville Arena. So let's talk a little bit about that first before we get to what actually sparked this conversation and this idea for a topic within my head today. So when you talk about basketball at Auburn, for the longest time, it was at Beard Eves Memorial Coliseum. I have so many fond memories at Beard Eves Memorial Coliseum, and I kind of wish in a small outside part of me that we were still there with all of the history and how just ginormous it is. And it's sad to think about that we couldn't make that a reality to keep doing that for the foreseeable future with renovations and stuff. But with the arms race that is going on, not just in men's basketball, but all of collegiate athletics for the SEC and the rest of the NCAA, you really do have to keep up with the Joneses. And so that's why we moved on from that facility and moved into what was then called Auburn Arena. And when you move from a arena, a coliseum, which it truly was, of that size down to a smaller, more intimate in a good way venue was Auburn Arena. I got to get you, and that's the thing that's going to be the tough part throughout all of this is switching over to talking about it as Neville Arena. And I know some of you are still not happy about that. We hear you, we get it, but we've all got to do it. Start getting used to it now. Call it the Nev if you like. That's my pitch to you. Call it the Nev because they never win. I know that was bad. That's my non-dad joke for the day, and I maybe promise not to do anymore. But let's talk about it within that context. Being in Auburn Arena and what you've heard a lot, not just this season, and really even to some degree, even before Bruce Pearl. Granted, those that were here before Bruce Pearl, we don't really speak of that much. It was still when you could get students hyped up to come to a game to see those particular programs. Exciting and an incredible venue to be at because of how close the student body and how close the fans in general are now to the action on the floor and what it creates. Much similar to a lot of the different venues that you'll find throughout all of the great college basketball venues. I mean, Rupp Arena, obviously. You've got Cameron Indoor especially. In fact, some of the designs, I believe, when they were figuring out how it was going to go, they kind of looked at Cameron Indoor to kind of figure out how close they could get things without it being too close and also too much of a replicate. But they did a great job, obviously, because as time has gone on, Auburn Arena, Neville Arena, I said I was going to have trouble with it, has become one of the most formidable environments in all of college basketball, if not the SEC alone. And that's not just me with my orange and blue glasses on saying that. Time and time again, you'll listen to a broadcast and the commentators are saying this environment is incredible. It is one of the best, and we've even heard some of those really prominent voices say this is the best atmosphere in college basketball. And granted, obviously, when you're having success as Auburn basketball and men's basketball is having right now, it makes it really easy to have that. But when you combine the venue, the way it was built, structured, the passion of the Auburn fan base with some success, it makes it for a challenging arena. So when we discuss this topic, who has the best in the SEC, you kind of have to keep those things in context of where we've been, where we are now, and obviously kind of predict where our programs are going to be at in terms of who has the best overall experience when it comes to an arena experience. So this list comes from, it's a group called Starcade Media. I don't know Starcade Media. I'm sure they do great work. From what I understand in my limited research about it, I believe that they are Missouri sports-based, which you'll understand why a particular team is up there in just a second, as high as they are, if that is the case. So Starcade Media put this out, and I saw it kind of circulating a little bit amongst Auburn Twitter folks a little bit today. And so I wanted to discuss, or the day before, the rankings that they put and maybe jumble them up a little bit and talk about where Auburn should probably fall within that discussion. So here, I will list for you real quick from bottom to top where Starcade Arena ranks the basketball arenas of the SEC. Number 14, Georgia. Number 13, Alabama. Number 12, Mississippi State. Number 11, Ole Miss. Number 10, LSU. Number 9, Texas A&M. Number 8, Vanderbilt. Number 7, Florida. Number 6, Auburn. Number 5, Missouri. Number 4, South Carolina. Number 3, Tennessee. Number 2, Arkansas. And number 1, Kentucky. No shocker there, right? We all anticipated that one was coming from way far off. So there are some things about this ranking that are right, or at least in the correct vicinity. For one, Kentucky's up at the top, Alabama's at the bottom. That's a winner in my book just within that in and of itself. But we need to discuss a few of these other things here and where I disagree, especially a little bit where Auburn is. You know, after thinking about it, after I initially saw this ranking out there, I kind of sat back and said, you know what, it's not as bad as I thought. I think it's really just the placement of others ahead of Auburn or around Auburn that I disagree with more than their actual placement within that. Because we can't just go off of current success. You know, we've got to go off of what the time has been like in formerly Auburn Arena, now Neville Arena, in its history as well. So here's how I looked at it, or at least I tried to look at this particular topic. I made a couple of groups here with reasons, obviously you got to have reasons, as to why I would put them in this vicinity. So I made a bottom 2. Alabama, yes, they have one of the most atrocious looking venues. It's a airplane hangar, and now they're going to be finally making updates to hopefully make it better, and I don't know that that's going to help. They do have a passionate fan base when they can decide to put down their footballs for a second and value things other than football, but the arena right now is just, it doesn't lend itself to a great environment. It literally looks like an airport hangar. For those of you that have been here on this channel or the podcast for a long time, we've been doing this 8+ years now, you'll have probably heard me till I'm blue in the face talk about how much I hate Vanderbilt and hate their arena. Not Vanderbilt, their arena. It's not even an arena. It's awful. It's one of the worst designed basketball courts and arenas ever. It's just really the court, to be honest with you. So those two alone are not even part of the discussion. I've just wished them away. They are gone, not part of the discussion. And I think rightfully so. I don't think I'm going to hear too many complaints about that. I found myself really struggling where to put Georgia in all of this. I mean, it's easy to put them at the bottom because of the way they are performing right now as a men's basketball program especially, but I don't know. I just don't know where to put them. So they're kind of just out there floating by themselves. Not as bad as Vanderbilt, not as bad as Alabama, but really can't find a reason to put them as an arena anywhere close to anybody else. Then I've got this group in the middle that I'm trying to counter past successes, current successes. Haven't had an opportunity to be at any of these arenas, but you know, you've got like South Carolina, some recent success. They've been to the Final Four. You've got Florida, who's a traditional power, Texas A&M, LSU. All of these teams are at least have a recent history, if not a longer history than that, of being good programs and probably thus having good environments. But you just don't really hear people talking about, wow, what an incredible college basketball environment. Wow, what an incredible SEC basketball environment they have. So for that reason, I'm kind of putting them in this like little group of respect simply because of their programs. But just in my opinion, this is just my opinion, they're kind of set apart. So we've got this group here. And again, I am an Auburn fan, so I'm going to be a little bit skewed on some of this. I get that. But Auburn finds himself in this group. I've got Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. And I almost wanted to move Tennessee kind of into that little secondary group, but I really can't because they've had great basketball environments since Bruce Pearl, and probably before then as well, got there. And now with Rick Barnes being there, they've kind of resustained that as well. And I know this goes beyond just the fans' experience and the hype around the program, but you can understand where they have probably a great environment as well. So I'm including them for that. I can tell you how much Auburn struggles to win at times in Ole Miss's arena, in Humphrey Coliseum, the Hump, Mississippi State. I can tell you how much they struggle to win in Bud Walton, and everybody struggles to win in Rupp Arena. Those are the given. So if you want to break that group down even further, you can probably put like a Tennessee, Mississippi State subgroup of that, but they all deserve to be part of the discussion here, in my opinion. So that really leaves the three right there that I think are the best. And this is not just coming from an Auburn fan. This is coming from who hears countless times of commentators who are claiming to be neutral say Auburn Arena, Neville Arena is the best in the SEC, if not the best. But I'm not going to say that they're the best. I'm going to go ahead and give that honor to Kentucky. I'm going to concede that. You have the history, you have the lore, you have the championships. I'm going to concede that for now, you have the best. I think it's a really strong case between Bud Walton and Auburn on who is the second best. And I know I'm going to stir those Arkansas fans that found the channel during this last men's basketball season up again, and we're going to probably see them a lot. Hope to hear from you guys. I know you're still there for somewhat. But I hope that people realize that this is really a conversation of respect between the two programs and vicariously their arenas. You know, you got Bud Walton, who's probably got more history, obviously, because it's older than Neville Arena. And the program as well has probably got a more storied history. You know, for the longest time, it was Kentucky and Arkansas that were that incredible rivalry. And that's still there. And Arkansas is having a really strong upswing in their program right now. And Auburn has kind of been on that upswing for a little bit of a time. But I think, honestly, when I look around the SEC, you really have to give Auburn that number 2 spot if you're just going to be real. Because time and time again, people come into Auburn Arena and they just don't have a lot of success. Yeah, the environment may be incredible at Bud Walton, but you've been beat there a few times. We did. I get it. Last season, we get it. But I believe, if I'm correct on this, nobody won in the Nev, because they never win. I did it again. In Neville Arena last season. And there was even a graphic shared by Auburn men's basketball social media this past week talking about I think it was 8 different programs who all had sellouts this past season, and Auburn was one of those. And of course, you saw Duke and you saw Dayton in there. Dayton is notorious for having an incredible basketball environment. But I really think when you slice things down, it really comes down to a conversation about Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas, and you can even throw Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee in that conversation. Well, and I know that probably grinds the gears of some Florida, LSU, maybe even some Texas A&M fans. But I really think that's where we find ourselves right now if we're going to really boil this down to a conversation of who, at this moment, has the best arena environment for basketball in general. Still got to kind of concede it to Kentucky. But I think it's fair to say that Auburn is pretty far up there and deserves to be so. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think about Auburn's placement in the particular ranking that Starcade Media put out and how I adjusted it a little bit? Didn't really give you an official ranking, just kind of gave you groups. What do you think about all of those different opinions from them, myself? I would love to hear from you. No matter how you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube or podcast formats, we appreciate you being here and tuning in to our little mini series, our little video podcast, The Ever to conquer, not ever to conquer, ever to podcast. Thank you for tuning in, where we share the whole of the Auburn experience. War Eagle.